Right, so what are some of the key things on the front pages today?
The ménage à trois is the headline over at business paper La Tribune. They mean, of course, Nicolas Sarkozy, Angela Merkel and the Italian Mario Monti. La Tribune, incidentally, announces in today's paper that they've gone up for sale and will be closing if they don't find a buyer pretty soon. So we might be doing without that paper in the very near future. But as to the headline, the business paper Les Echos has a pretty similar one as well. They say Merkel and Sarkozy have reached a truce on the subject of the European Central Bank. The paper, though, is not very keen on that truce. They say the purpose of a central bank is to stabilise a currency. If they can't print money, there's no point having one. They point out that the German central bank is the only other one that isn't very keen, rather, on printing money, but that the European Central Bank needs what they call a nuclear accident to try and change the DNA it inherited from the German one.
OK, well, one of the big French stories that we've been covering in the news bulletins here is that kidnapping of 2 French citizens in Mali yesterday. How are the papers covering that?
Well, it's on all the front pages, as you might imagine. Like here on the front page of Le Figaro, they say that Al-Qaeda might be behind that kidnapping. Inside, the paper's analysis says that the Libya conflict might actually have been very convenient to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. We haven't actually heard anything from them since January, when they captured 2 French citizens in Niger. But they say they might be profiting from the power vacuum left in southern Libya, and also they may have been raiding Gaddafi's arms depots in the south of that country. A number of weapons, including surface-to-air missiles, have disappeared from there. So Le Figaro says more hostage dramas like this might be coming in the future as a result of the Arab Spring, because it's left that power gap that Al-Qaeda is managing to exploit in parts of the Sahara.
Gosh, well, moving back to here in France, slightly perhaps more prosaically, controversy over foreigners and whether they should be allowed to vote in the presidential election next year.
Yes, now this is a socialist election promise that they're going to let foreigners, long-term residents in France, to vote. Nicolas Sarkozy came out this week opposed to it, and there is a video circulating on the web, though, from 2001 in which he says he backs that proposal, so it's become a bit controversial. But if we have a look at the front page of La Croix here, they've been looking at what other countries in Europe do about allowing foreigners to vote. Apparently there's 10 other countries like France which ban it completely, including Germany and Italy, but at least 10 others, including Hungary and Finland, which allow them to vote. But La Croix does say in its editorial that by making this an election issue, the right is trying to stir up the hatred of foreigners, and it's a bit of a cheap shot.
OK, well, we're going to stay with French politics because we have talked an awful lot about the socialist candidate François Hollande and, of course, President Nicolas Sarkozy in the run-up to next year's election. But Libération is asking, why have we forgotten all about the other parties, the smaller parties in this vote?
What happened to the far left? That's their headline here at Libération. Now, they point out that in France there's always been a rich tradition of really quite far left Trotskyist, Marxist parties doing quite well in elections. There's 2 particularly, the New Capitalist Party and a party called Lutte Ouvrière, Workers' Fight. Now, between the 2 of them, they got 10% of votes in 2002, just 10 years ago, but now they're collecting less than 1% of voting intentions. Now, they talk to representatives of the parties themselves who say that they should be being able to take advantage of the economic moment to try and convince voters actually they were right all along about capitalism. Now look where it's got us. But we're living in such an over-mediatised age, they say, that with their small publicity budgets, they just can't compete with bigger parties for media attention. The paper points out, of course, though, that their traditional working-class voters who would have picked those parties seem to be getting more and more disassociated from politics, and the actual reason might be that those people are no longer voting at all.
OK, well, never mind the euro, finally. Le Parisien is asking one of the really big economic questions of our age.
How much do footballers really earn? That's their front page title. Now, they've got into the accounts of 2 of France's biggest clubs, Paris Saint-Germain and Olympique Marseille. Now, how much do you think their highest paid player in France earns, Lorna?
It must be several thousand or several million, I'm assuming.
It's 360,000 euros a month. That goes to a Marseille player called a month. That goes to a Marseille player called Lucho, who I've never heard of, but apparently, according to some men I asked in the office, he's not worth it. I don't think it's anywhere near as much as your Beckhams and top stars at English clubs like Man United earn, though.
Well, it certainly doesn't sound as big a sum, but I wouldn't mind it nonetheless. Thank you very much indeed, Elena, for that look at what's making the French newspapers. Plenty more still to come here on Live from Paris, including a trip to a country many have written off as the worst place to live on the planet, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Can this Monday's presidential elections there find someone to lead it out of 5 years of civil war? More on that in Focus after the break.